Guys, I hit 40,000 subscribers on YouTube. My brain has turned to mush. I don't even understand. I cannot comprehend. It literally feels like yesterday that I started my YouTube channel. I've learned so much throughout this entire journey. I wanted to create a video that would have been the perfect video for me to have watched when I first wanted to start my YouTube channel, as kind of a thank you to you guys, but also to help any of you if this is something that's interested you but you didn't really know where to start. This video is for you. To take you back to the beginning, I started my YouTube channel in 2017, and I mostly did it because I was working a 9-to-5 and had all of this free time after work that I didn't know what to do with. And I've always really loved video editing. I did video editing in high school, although I really don't think that's a prerequisite that you need in order to do a YouTube channel. At the time, I was living in a studio apartment. There wasn't any information on living in studio apartments on YouTube. YouTube today is a very different place compared to what it was back then. Back then, when I was looking, I was trying to figure out how to live in a studio, and all of the information I could find online was like, family of 4 lives in 200 square foot tiny house. And I was like, nope, I am one girl living in a 400 square foot studio. Where do I put my broom? What do I do for organization? Like, how do I make this work? Because I wasn't seeing that there was content readily available on it, I knew this was something that I was really passionate about as I was living on my own for the first time. And this was this really exciting time in my life. And so I figured if nobody else is doing it, what is stopping me from being that person myself? My YouTube channel has obviously changed and evolved a lot over the years. I'll kind of go through my story a little bit more as I go through this, but I have learned a lot along the way, and I've just talked to lots of people who have wanted to do this journey. I feel like I have some good insight to give. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into my tips for today. Also, if you didn't notice, I'm wearing a red sweater because YouTube. Is that how the kids do it? All right, number one, because this is like my most commonly asked question. I definitely don't think it should be. Most people come to me and ask about gear. I find it really fascinating how many people think that they need like this big professional setup in order to start a YouTube channel. The truth of the matter is, people want to see people. Yes, there are some YouTube channels where it is extremely high quality. It is really professionally filmed and edited, and those are beautiful. But I would say for the vast majority of people who are successful on YouTube, they start by just being a person, and like you gotta start somewhere. I do not think that you need any sort of professional equipment to start a YouTube channel at all. When I first started, I started filming on a Sony a500, which I don't even think they make it anymore. It is a mirrorless camera with a flip-up screen. I really loved that camera. I used it for years and years and years. I then moved on and filmed on the G7X, which I feel like is the new like fancy influencer camera for photography, which is interesting because I've always used it for filming, but I actually don't use either of those cameras anymore today. All of that to be said, I do not think that you need any camera in order to start a YouTube channel. Your camera on your phone is so freaking good. Use that. I think the hardest part about starting a YouTube channel is starting, and there are so many barriers to entry that people build up in their heads that makes it so that way they won't actually get the ball rolling, when in reality, none of this shit matters. In order to start a YouTube channel, you have to start from somewhere and let it grow from there. So truthfully, I do not think that you need a fancy camera. You do not need a lighting setup. You honestly don't even need a tripod, even though tripods are really cheap. So if you were gonna buy something, that would be my recommendation, just because you could get a phone tripod for like 20 bucks on Amazon. But other than that, you do not need to pay for anything in order to start a YouTube channel. Half the time, I end up just stacking random crap that I have around my house to build my own little makeshift tripod. None of it is necessary in order to start. When it comes to your video editing software, use whatever is free. So I used iMovie on my laptop for years before I upgraded to Final Cut Pro, which is pretty dang expensive, but Final Cut Pro is a fantastic video editing software. My husband now edits all of my videos, and he uses a software called DaVinci Resolve, which is free. So if you wanted to start off with that, but to be honest, it's a little bit more technical, so is Final Cut. And so if you're not familiar with video editing yet, I would say start with whatever is free on your laptop, whether it's Windows Movie Maker or iMovie, and just get used to that until you hit a point where you're like, there are things that I want to do and I'm ready to outgrow this. Then go ahead and move into something else, but just start with the free basic one and just learn how to do it. My next tip is you need to find a niche. I think that this part is really hard for people to wrap their heads around. I know so many people who want to start a YouTube channel and they want to create vlogs, which is awesome. I love it. I make vlogs. I love creating vlogs. It is a really great way to showcase more of your personality and have a little bit more fun with your channel. However, you cannot start a YouTube channel with vlogs unless you are an influencer on Instagram or TikTok and you have a ton of followers already that are really, really loyal followers that are ready to follow you onto another platform. Vlogs are so much more personality based, and it is very hard to get somebody to feel a connection to a channel that has less than 1,000 subscribers just for personality. Instead of focusing on vlogs, you need to find a niche. What are you passionate about? What can you talk about for hours? You need to figure out something that you can be a professional yapper in that department and talk on it. I can yap. And when I started my YouTube channel, I was able to yap for hours about small space living. I think I literally talked about everything under the sun about small space living that you can possibly think of. I'm pretty sure my first 50 videos were all under the premise of small space living and organization. There was nothing that hit my channel that was outside of that realm, because I knew that I needed to make it so that way people could trust that I was giving them content that was educational and that they could get something from. If you are not giving something to your audience, it's really hard to get people to like your personality enough to want to stick around without them feeling like they're getting something in return when you're first starting. You kind of need to build up that credibility. Once you have more subscribers, I think it's easier for people to see a channel and see the view count and see the subscriber count and see a vlog and be like, okay, this person is legit. They have been doing this, like they have some credibility behind them. But while you're first getting started, I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to find a niche and stick to that niche. Teach your people something. These strangers are finding you on the internet. You owe it to them to be able to give them some reason to follow along. It can be about whatever you want. You could be interested in baking or small space living or cars, whatever weird niche that you're passionate about. I know you have a passion. Lean into that. Your channel does not need to stay the same thing for the rest of its eternity, but you have to start with something and stick to it. I do a lot of organization stuff. I still show a lot of studio apartments, but my channel has expanded so much further than small space living and organization. Honestly, my biggest pillar currently is just Chicago in general, and that was not even on my radar when I first started. So I think you need to figure out where are you going to start, but be comfortable knowing that's probably not where you're going to end. Another thing on that topic, I feel like this is like one of my taglines. Anybody who's ever asked me about YouTube, I've said this to them, but you have to be so comfortable screaming into the abyss. You are going to be posting videos for so long and no one's going to care. It is going to be so long. Like, you are going to put in the most absurd amount of hours of work into this with no one giving a shit. Like, no one's gonna care. My mom probably didn't even watch my videos back then. Actually, I take that back. My mom probably did, but that's because my mom's a rock star. But in general, like, people just aren't gonna care. So you have to be really, really comfortable putting all of this effort in and screaming into the abyss and just working so hard at something with absolutely no return for a long, long time. YouTube is not like TikTok. For the vast majority of people on this platform, you don't just pop off once and then like have a really successful, like, strong following. YouTube is much more of a slow burn. It is personally the reason why I love YouTube so much, because I don't feel like I'm fighting an algorithm. And I think that the people who subscribe to me here really understand me and like me as a person so much more than on the other platforms. But it takes so much time. I'm pretty sure that I posted 2 times a week for like 2 years straight before I hit 1,000 subscribers. That is so much work. Keep in mind, each video in all production time is probably about 10 hours, and I was doing 2 of those a week. I still am. That takes me into my next point of advice, which is just consistency across the board. I will always tell anyone, if you are interested in starting a YouTube channel, I cannot recommend it enough. It is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm so glad that I did this. This is my dream job. I love it so much. However, you need to keep in mind that this is so much work. It is so much harder to edit a YouTube video than it is to edit a TikTok or an Instagram reel or post on Instagram or post on your stories. This is a lot. Long form content is hard. You better freaking love what you're talking about, and you better love both social media and video editing, because it's going to take you so much time, and just be prepared for that from the start. I, from the very get-go, posted 2 videos a week. That's a ton to do. However, I really do not think I would have gotten the traction, and I think I would have fallen off somewhere very early on if I did not hold myself to that commitment. From the very first day, I treated this like a full-time job, because my dream was to make it my full-time job. And if I wanted it to be that as an end goal, I needed to treat it as that from the start. I really don't think, if you're posting less than 2 times a week, I do not think you're going to get enough traction and like people to see your videos. And the worst thing you can do is post 2 times a week and then not post for a month, and then post again, and then post again in 2 weeks. And you have to be consistent. When you're starting, you are teaching these strangers on the internet hey, you can trust me. I'm going to put out good content. I'm going to put out educational content, and I'm going to be consistent with my content. So in order for these people to trust you, you have to hit those 3 pillars. Consistency is a hard one, but it is so insanely important. With that, when it comes to your YouTube videos, at least in order to get your feet off the ground, you need to figure out a workflow that makes sense for you, that is something that is sustainable. For my videos, I have a ton of different types of videos on my channel now, but just as some examples, when I do like walk-through apartment tours, those take me a decently long amount of time because I have to go to the place, I film the unit, I film the walkthrough with me, I film all of the B-roll, and that's all before editing. Vlogs take me a decently long amount of time, even though I'm just kind of carrying on with my general life. Stopping to film all the time, it takes a long time, and those are filmed over a series of days, if not a week. Sit-down chats, such as this video, tend to be a little bit faster because I can film this video in 20 to 30 minutes, and then they just go into editing from there. When I first started my channel, so many of my videos were some sort of sit-down chat or something where I was like taking you through as I was organizing something. Basically, all of them were filmed in my studio apartment, not like filming studio. That made it a lot easier for me to be able to pump out a lot of videos. Some of my first videos were like 5 minutes long, and it was literally me sitting in front of a camera and just yapping for 5 minutes. Find a workflow that works well for you, and keep in mind that your content is always going to get better over time. My first videos are so dang cringy. They're not great, but I had to start somewhere. I had to learn how to get better at video editing. What is my style? What do I want my voice to be? Like, how do I want to portray myself? And there's no way to figure that out without actually just starting. So you have to start somewhere. I also think that with getting started, a lot of people get like, I refer to it as posting paralysis, where you feel like everything needs to be totally perfect in order to post. It could not be further from the truth. My YouTube banner when I first started, my descriptions, my thumbnails, like all of these things, I spent so much time on them, and I waited until I felt like I'd perfected them in order to start posting. And in reality, now that it's years later, I think they're awful. I think they're all awful. So it doesn't even matter. Just put something up and know it will get better with time. You can always change and grow, but it is so much better to get started when things aren't perfect and just get the ball rolling and know you can update over time. Next tip, I know I talked a lot about niching yourself down. I would say once you get to the point that you really feel like you've explored your niche as much as possible, you are allowed to branch out. Throw some spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. But do understand, a lot of those videos probably aren't going to work, but then you'll have one that does. One of my first ways that I expanded my channel and decided to try new things out was by doing Trader Joe's hauls. And the Trader Joe's hauls did so well for me for such a long time. That was a huge part of my channel for a really long time, and they were so much fun. I don't do them anymore. I felt like they kind of fizzled off for me. However, that was something that if I didn't try that first Trader Joe's haul, I would have never known if this was going to work for me or not. So it was a really fun one to be able to just like dabble in. Point being, if you have other interests, try them out every once in a while, but just know you always have your like base niche to go back to. Another thing I absolutely love from YouTube, I think that this is a place that fosters a much closer relationship with an audience than it does like Instagram or TikTok. Instagram and TikTok, your content is just so short. You don't really get to know someone's personality in the same way that you do on a YouTube channel. It's why I love long form so much. Like truly, I have made legitimate friends from the internet from my YouTube channel. There are people who like, I've never met them in person. I've never even talked to them like on a phone call, but we've talked for years because of this channel. I think that that is such a cool thing that the internet can do and bring together. I think one of the things that worked really well for me was during the pandemic, I did Cooking with Kai, which was a live cooking show, and that brought in so much interaction and was a really fun way to be able to like actively chat with my subscribers all the time. I don't do it anymore just because once the pandemic ended, life got busy and it was hard for me to find time to do a live cooking show, and I felt like it was also hard for like my subscribers to find the time to log in, whereas during the pandemic, 2 times a week, like we had dates set up. Whatever you do, lean into your audience, make sure that they know that you appreciate them. I try and respond to as many comments as possible, just like interact with people. I follow people back on Instagram. I love when people are in my DMs and they tell me that they've come over from YouTube. Like try and get that interaction because it honestly is just so much more fun when you feel like you have a close connection with your audience. Next is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, which is they will look at other people's YouTube channels and they'll see their success and they will, number one, feel bad about themselves, and number two, just try and replicate what they see. I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with looking at other creators and getting inspiration from them and seeing what are things that they do that you really like, that you feel drawn to. However, you cannot stray away from who you are. The most important thing on YouTube is to be authentic and be yourself. I tell this to everybody, like in any profession. I use this a lot in the real estate world. The one thing that nobody on this planet can do better than me is be me. It's the only thing that people can't do better than me. There are people on this planet who can do literally every single thing that I do better than I can, but they cannot be me more than I can be me. So really lean into that. Honestly, feel such a sense of freedom. Why is this one gonna make me cry? I feel such a sense of freedom when it comes to my YouTube channel because I have been so unapologetically, authentically myself on here. I have showed myself on my worst days. Excuse me, I'm having a moment right now, motorcycles. I'm gonna need you to shut up. Chicago said, no, we're not talking about you. I've showed up on here on my absolute worst days. I have talked to you about my anxieties. I've cried on camera. I have been my silliest on camera. I've come on with no makeup and like freshly woken up. Like I've done it all. And because of that, I feel this sense of like total freedom. It feels like the people who follow me on YouTube have followed me because they really like who I am as a person. And it's made it so I don't get embarrassed easily. And I am just so grateful to have a community who likes me for who I am truly, instead of me trying to portray someone or like be different from who I really am. And so my biggest thing is just like be so deeply authentic, because number one, it feels so good to have people who like you for who you actually truly are. And number two, no one is gonna be able to do it better. I think if I have one tip, I know that one's a little like woo-woo and emotional, but that is like my biggest tip that I can possibly give. Last but not least, if you are thinking about starting a YouTube channel, very most important thing is you have to have fun with it. The amount of hours that you put in for a YouTube channel for the average person will probably never make sense for how much money you're making. I get paid with YouTube ads and I think I can barely pay my groceries maybe each month with how much I make just from YouTube monetization. That doesn't include like brand deals and things, but YouTube monetization is not going to pay your bills. So if that is your reason for wanting to get into this, just stop watching this video. It is not going to work for you. The reason you should get into YouTube is because you want to have fun with it and you want something to be able to share your life and create videos and have this creative outlet. If you love this, it does not feel like a job. It feels like an opportunity and a blessing to be able to do something that you love so much. If you don't have a passion and you don't have a love for it, you're never going to enjoy it. It is that plain and simple, because even as someone who loves this so much, there are still days where I'm like, I don't want to film. I don't even do my editing anymore and I don't want to do it. You have to love it. Love it, have fun with it. YouTube is one of the best things I've ever done with my life. I love this platform so much. I love all of you so much. I'm so forever grateful to be able to have this. Thank you to every single one of you who has hit that subscribe button. I hope that this video gave you some inspo and was able to help teach you a little bit something if you are wanting to start a YouTube channel. But I appreciate you. I love you. Comment down below with any questions. My DMs on Instagram are also always open. I'm happy to chat. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.